"Are you my daddy?" A little girl's question stunned the Millionaire CEO in the lobby. His next move changed both their lives forever. In the grand marble lobby of Halbridge Global, under the towering glass chandeliers and buzzing footsteps of executives, something strange happened. A young girl with soft curly hair, no older than 6, tugged gently at the sleeve of a tall, sharply dressed man in his early 40s. He was Damien Cross, CEO, Millionaire, visionary. His tailored charcoal suit, pressed white shirt and designer loafers gleamed, just like his polished reputation. But when the little girl looked up at him with large, hopeful hazel eyes and asked, "Are you my daddy?" the room fell into a stunned silence. Damien, whose caramel-toned skin was always stoic with confidence, suddenly lost all words. His eyes, usually so sharp, widened in disbelief. The expression on the girl's round face was tender but confused, her small hands clutching a worn backpack. She wore faded jeans, a hand-me-down coat too large for her tiny frame, and shoes that had seen better days. Everyone stopped. Assistants froze mid-text. Executives paused their power strides. No one dared to breathe. Something had just shifted, and it was as if Damien's entire world cracked open in the space of a sentence. "What did you say?" Damien asked, his voice strained. The girl, still gazing up, replied softly, "My mommy said my daddy was named Damien." Her voice was filled with a quiet certainty, but she looked unsure, like a little bird unsure if it should fly. Damien knelt down slowly, the lines on his clean-shaven face tightening. "What's your name, sweetheart?" he asked. The girl hesitated. "Dia," she whispered. "Dia Harper." At the name Harper, Damien blinked hard, his memory jolted. There it was, Harper. A name from a decade ago, a girl, a night, a goodbye he never followed through on. Dia, with her light brown skin, tangled hair and hopeful stare, mirrored someone else he hadn't seen in years. Someone he thought he'd left behind in the quiet coastal town of Rosehaven. His mind reeled. His assistant Ivy approached cautiously. "Sir, the quarterly call is in 10. But her voice faded when she saw his face. He waved her off, eyes still on Dia. Something deeper than shock was creeping in now, guilt, regret, and fear. That night, Damien couldn't sleep. The city's luxury skyline blurred outside his penthouse windows, but all he could see was the town of Rosehaven, a place he hadn't thought about in 10 years. He sat in his silent apartment, the ticking of a designer clock loud in the emptiness. The name Harper rang in his ears. He remembered her now, Kira Harper, a waitress with auburn curls and stormy gray eyes. They had met during a business retreat when Damien was just beginning his rise in the corporate world. She had been kind, grounded, and unlike anyone in his world. They spent 3 months in a whirlwind romance before life, his ambition, pulled him away. He left, never called back, assuming she would move on. But Dia, that girl, had Kira's eyes. He pulled up his encrypted archives, searching through old emails, texts, anything. Nothing. He had wiped the past clean so thoroughly that even his memory struggled to reconnect. But one thing was certain. If Dia was his daughter, Kira had raised her alone. And he had never known. Suddenly his empire of power and profit felt hollow. He had been rich in everything except the things that mattered most. Kira Harper lived in a 2-bedroom walk-up above a small laundromat on the east side of the city. The carpets were old and the heater rattled in the winter. But it was home. She worked long shifts as a receptionist at a neighborhood clinic, balancing rent, groceries, and daycare bills that always came too fast. That morning she was tired. Her gray eyes had dark circles beneath them, and her shoulder-length auburn hair was pinned back with a pencil. As she walked into her kitchen to find Dia drawing quietly at the table, her heart squeezed. "Dia," she asked gently, "what did you say to the man in the lobby yesterday?" Dia looked up, guilt on her face. "He looked like the man in your picture. So I asked." Kira's breath caught. She hadn't shown Dia that photo in years. A small Polaroid tucked in the back of a drawer. Kira sat down beside her daughter, unsure whether to scold or cry. She had sworn never to tell Damien. He had left. No calls, no letters. She didn't want Dia to grow up waiting for someone who might never come. But now, she realized, fate had decided differently. A few days later, a package arrived at the clinic addressed to Miss Dia Harper. Confused, Kira opened it in the break room, expecting a mistake. Inside were brand new art supplies, children's books, and a small note. "Every artist deserves the tools to dream." From a friend. Kira's hands trembled. She recognized the handwriting. Damien. She stared at the gift for a long time before bringing it home. When Dia opened it, her eyes lit up like Christmas morning. She ran to her mom, hugging her tight, squealing in joy. But Kira remained quiet. She knew Damien was trying to connect, cautiously, respectfully. Part of her wanted to tear the gifts up. Another part, the part that still dreamed late at night, wondered what life would have been like if he had stayed. Still, she didn't reach out. She wasn't ready, not yet. At Halbridge Global, Damien was a different man. Once confident and sharp in every meeting, he now sat distracted. During presentations, he caught himself scribbling Daya in the margins. During lunch, he watched fathers play with their children in the plaza below. His board noticed. "You all right, Damien?" they asked. He brushed them off with smooth words. But his soul was elsewhere. Every time he saw a child's drawing on a hallway fridge or a parent video calling their kid, it struck a chord. He had everything: fortune, respect, fame. Yet the idea of being someone's father, of being missed, of mattering beyond headlines, now that felt richer than anything he had ever known. He knew he had hurt Kira, and he knew that nothing he could offer would make up for lost time. But maybe, just maybe, he could start with truth. Kira heard the knock at 6 p.m. sharp. She knew who it was before she opened the door. Damien stood there, holding nothing but the weight of his past in his eyes. He looked different. Older, sharper, tired in a new way. "Hi," he said. Kira stared at him in silence for a long moment before stepping aside. He entered quietly. The apartment was small but warm, filled with the scent of tomato soup and the laughter of Daya in the next room. "She doesn't know you're here," Kira whispered. "I just wanted to talk," Damien replied, his voice low, sincere. She folded her arms. "Talk after 10 years, Damien didn't flinch. "I didn't know, I didn't even think, that much is clear," she interrupted. "You chose your life, you made your choices." "I did," he said. "And they were wrong." For the first time, Kira saw something behind his polished exterior: vulnerability, regret, maybe even love. They talked long into the evening, about the past, about the retreat, about how they drifted, about what could have been. Damien listened more than he spoke. Kira vented years of frustration, of nights alone, of questions Daya would ask that she couldn't answer. She didn't cry, not once, but her voice cracked more than once. "I didn't want her to grow up chasing a ghost," she said. Damien nodded slowly. "I don't want to be a ghost anymore." She looked at him, unsure if she should believe him. He seemed different, but could people really change? When Daya peeked around the corner, sleepy-eyed and curious, both adults froze. "Mommy, who's that?" she asked. Kira swallowed hard. Damien knelt again, eye level with the child. "I'm a friend," he said softly. "And I think I might be your dad." Daya stared at him, expression unreadable. Then slowly she nodded. Kira's hand trembled at her side. After that night, Damien didn't try to force his way in. Instead, he waited, one step at a time. He started sending Daya small notes with her gifts, nothing extravagant. A sketchbook with a message: "Art is how we say what we're afraid to speak." A puzzle: "Every piece matters, just like you." Kira watched cautiously. She wasn't ready to forgive, but she couldn't deny it. Daya smiled more, laughed more. She talked about Damien like a character in a fairy tale, not a father. Not yet, but something hopeful. Damien began visiting once a week, sitting on the floor helping Daya paint or reading stories with animated voices. He never stayed long. He never assumed a role. At work, Damien's life shifted too. He stopped answering emails at midnight. He stepped away from boards and started mentoring young interns. He began living less for investors and more for the little girl who believed in him. Still, at night he feared the damage was already done. But showing up consistently, humbly, was his first real act of love. Kira tried not to fall into old patterns. She told herself not to smile when Damien laughed with Daya, not to watch the way he helped with dishes or gently tucked Daya's scarf when they walked to the park. But she noticed everything. He didn't ask about her life. He didn't offer money. He didn't try to buy forgiveness. And that somehow made it harder. One evening, as they sat side by side on the park bench, watching Daya draw chalk hearts on the sidewalk, Kira finally asked the question that had haunted her for a decade. "Why didn't you come back?" Damien stared forward. "Because I was selfish. I told myself I had to choose between love and success, and I chose wrong." Kira looked away. "And what if I still don't believe you've changed?" He shrugged gently. "Then I'll keep showing up until I earn the right to try." It wasn't an apology. It was something deeper: accountability. For the first time, Kira wondered, maybe he really was different. One Saturday, Daya invited Damien to her school art show. Kira hesitated, but when she saw her daughter's joy, she gave in. Damien arrived early, nervous in a way he hadn't felt since his first investor pitch. He wore a simple blue sweater and jeans. No designer suit, no assistant shadowing him. Daya's display was a collage titled "My World." In it, she had drawn herself, Kira, and Damien. His figure was tall, with a kind smile, and a big heart drawn on his chest. He stood frozen. The label below the drawing read, "My dad, he's learning." Kira saw it too. She didn't say anything. She didn't have to. After the show, they walked home in silence, each carrying part of a picture they weren't ready to frame but weren't ready to let go of either. Weeks passed. Their connection grew slowly, tentatively. Damien joined them for dinner on Thursdays, sometimes reading Daya to sleep while Kira worked late. He never overstepped, always waited to be invited. Then one evening he didn't show up, no call, no message. Kira felt the old fear rise, of men disappearing when it mattered, of promises broken. She tucked Daya into bed and stayed up pacing. Just after midnight her phone buzzed. "Damien, I'm so sorry. My mother's in the hospital. I'm flying out tonight. I'll explain soon. Please tell Daya I'll be back." The message was short, but sincere. Kira sat on the edge of her bed, torn between the habit of assuming the worst and the reality of someone finally being honest. For once she chose trust. Damien hadn't spoken to his mother in years. But when he walked into her hospital room, frail and faded with time, he saw something familiar in her eyes. "You look tired," she said weakly. "I've been changing," he admitted. She smiled. "I wondered if you ever would." They talked about Rosehaven, about Kira, about the baby he never knew. His mother closed her eyes and whispered, "Don't waste another decade like your father did." Damien stayed by her side for 3 days. When he returned, he didn't come with gifts, he came with presents, and Kira saw him, really saw him, for the first time. Kira was strong, independent, but she couldn't deny it anymore. Her heart was opening again. And that terrified her. One night, after Daya had fallen asleep, she stood in the kitchen with Damien. "I'm scared," she said quietly. He leaned on the counter, arms crossed loosely. "Of what?" "Of needing you," she whispered. "Of Daya needing you, and you leaving again." "I won't," he said. "You can't promise that." "I can promise I'll fight like hell not to," he said. And in that moment it wasn't grand or dramatic, but it was real. Their first true day as something close to a family was a lazy Sunday. They stayed in pajamas. Daya painted butterflies on cardboard while Damien helped Kira cook pancakes. Music played low, laughter echoed from the hallway. It wasn't a proposal, it wasn't a declaration, it was a glimpse of what life could be if forgiveness lived here. That spring, Kira received a letter. A local nonprofit had nominated her for a Resilient Parent Award. Someone had submitted her name anonymously. She looked at Damien. He smiled but said nothing. At the ceremony, she stood on stage with Daya beside her, reading a small speech. "I was afraid of being alone," she said. "But I learned that strength isn't about doing everything yourself. It's about letting the right people in." She met Damien's eyes in the crowd. He mouthed the words, "Thank you." It didn't happen with a ring or a restaurant. It happened in their living room, surrounded by laundry and art projects. Damien knelt, not to propose romance, but something deeper. "I know I missed the first 6 years, but if you'll let me, I want to be here for every year after." Kira blinked back tears. Daya ran into the room at just the right time, hugging them both. "Yes," Kira whispered, "but you'd better be all in." "I already am," he said. They married in a park with 50 guests and no photographers. Daya wore a flower crown and led the vows with a drawing she made, 3 hearts holding hands. Damien spoke with trembling hands. "This isn't just a wedding. It's a promise to show up." Kira's voice broke as she said, "I forgive you, and I choose us." Everyone cried, even Damien. Life didn't become perfect. Daya still had tantrums, bills still came, work still drained them. But now they faced it together. Damien took fewer flights, more walks. Kira smiled more, feared less. Daya never asked again if he was her dad, she just called him that every day. Years later, Daya would tell the story to her own child. "How did you meet Daddy?" she'd ask. And Kira would laugh gently, brushing back her daughter's curls. "I didn't meet him," she'd say. "You did. Because sometimes the smallest voice delivers the biggest wake-up call. And sometimes the family you fight for is the one worth everything." If this story moved you, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more stories about love, redemption, and the power of second chances.